Welcome to episode 8 of Change by Attraction. I'm Esther Derby, and I'm here to talk to you about all things related to organizational change. I've lived with 5 different dogs over the years, and I have learned something useful from each and every one of them, including lessons about organizational change. Now, I'm not saying that people in your organization are like dogs or have gone to the dogs, unlike a rather famous book on change where the characters are rats. My 4th dog was a Frenchie named Miss Pudge. She spent every day in the office with me. She usually spent that time chewing on a bone or taking naps. But in between, when she wasn't napping, she was tugging her blanket around the room. Now, the blanket was getting kind of ratty, and it was a trip hazard, so I decided to replace it. I was the manager in my organization, and I made a decision. Like all managers, paid to fix problems. So they act in good faith, they design solutions, and then they reveal them to the rest of the organization. What happens next is entirely predictable. To those who are part of designing a change, they understand the reasons and the internal logic. They've been living with it and considering it for weeks or even months. But to the rest of the organization, they aren't privy to that, and they respond accordingly. So here are the lessons I learned with my top-down change, replacing the dog bed, which match exactly what I've observed in organizations. Well, a few of the details are different, but the pattern is the same. Lesson 1. A change always represents someone's best idea of how to solve a problem or respond to an external event. I decided that a cushy new dog bed would be just the right thing to solve several problems. It would stay in one place, it would look better, it would make a more comfortable bed for the dog. And this is almost always true. Someone's offering the best idea they have, no matter what it looks and feels like from below. People are trying to make something better. However, unless managers pay attention to the other 6 lessons that I'm going to share, it's unlikely that people are going to appreciate this when they're asked to change. So lesson 2, one person's carefully considered idea is another person's incomprehensible surprise. When the mailman arrived with a new dog bed, Pudge was curious about it. She was curious about the box. She was even interested in the bed. However, when I removed her ratty old blanket and put the new bed in its place, she stopped being interested. She picked up her bone and headed for the hall. Then she came back and relocated the rest of her toys one by one to her place of exile in the hall. My big idea was an incomprehensible and unpleasant surprise to her. It's very important for people to understand the thinking behind a change. They need information and time to digest that information. Now, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have been able to explain the logic to my dog, but people will get it, and they deserve to know the rationale. Lesson 3. The people seeking a change may value different things than the people expected to change. When I bought that new dog bed, I was looking for neatness, containment, easy washing, and a nice, comfy place for my dog. I expect that Pudge valued the odor of her old blanket. People who ask others to change may not understand what they value. They may not understand what value they're asking people to give up. They may not appreciate what other people value. Lesson 4. Change always involves loss. I had every intention of providing something wonderful for Miss Pudge, but she didn't see it that way. She lost her familiar nest. It was replaced by something that smelled of unknown chemicals and perfumes. It was disturbing. Even when there's a long-term gain, people still experience loss. They may lose established routines, patterns, relationships. They may lose status, a sense of prestige, their sense of competence or belonging. And it's super important to consider this, not just the upside, but the downside and the losses involved in change. And then be prepared to empathize with people. You don't have to fix it. You just need to recognize their feelings are legitimate and listen. Lesson 5. Choice or coercion depends on where you sit. I chose to toss my dog's old blanket. I didn't consult her or offer any choice. But she's not a human. Intelligent adults are often treated the same way in organizational change. They aren't consulted about their needs and capabilities, aren't considered. Their ideas for improvement aren't taken into account. People don't resist change, but change presented as follow or be fired feels like coercion, and most people resist coercion. Remember the fingerprint principle from episode 3? People like to get their fingers on something. They may still feel a sense of loss, but they are then less likely to feel like victims. They'll have a part in it, and they may have really good ideas if you bother to ask them. Now, I suspect if I had put the old blanket on top of the new bed, Pudge might have taken to it a little better. Maybe it would have picked up some of the odor. Lesson 6. How people respond to change is a rich source of information. When people don't do what you want them to do, it gets labeled as resistance. Check out episode 4. People always have valid reasons not to change. You don't have to agree with those reasons, but it helps to listen to them. You'll learn something about what they value. Lesson 7. People change to retain something they value. The second day after the new bed, Pudge followed me to the office, but stopped at the door. I enticed her onto the new bed with a biscuit. She picked it up and left. We repeated this routine for 3 days. Finally, after 4 days alone in the hall, she came into the office. She still disliked the bed, but I believe her desire to be close to her human outweighed that. Most people don't change because there's a good argument for change, or even when there's overwhelming data. Look at the number of people who still smoke. People change to retain something they value. It may be an association with people in the organization. It may be a steady paycheck. It may be something else, but take time to find out what that is, because then you can relate the change to the new thing and to what they value. Bottom line, lack of enthusiasm for a new idea or proposed change may not mean it's a bad idea, but it indicates there's more work to be done. More work to be done engaging people, listening to them, hearing their good ideas, and incorporating their ideas into the change. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, like it and tune in for the next one.